Okay, hello everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful evening or morning or afternoon whenever you're watching this video. I just hit the live button, so that means the first couple of minutes I've got to fiddle around with getting you the link posted on Blackboard. Just a moment here while I wait for the preview to pop up, and it does pop up. Excellent. Time to navigate then to the place where I get the link. Oh, let's see, it's not quite. YouTube lags behind just a little bit in posting the video for everyone to see and getting you that unique link. YouTube lags behind. Whoop, there we go. See that? It took a couple seconds. Streamception there. Okay, I have the link. We'll just post it on the announcement section for the fourth broadcast link. Here's the link to the fourth broadcast. Oh man, cannot type today. Okay, it's probably all the holiday stuff going on, you know? And the race was today. A stealth bomber flew over my house today. It was quite the sight to see, I tell you. Alright, just let me post the link here. Gotta do a few more clicks. Just a few more clackety clacks. Also, I should probably close that program down. That makes a lot of noise. Okay, there we go. All right, hope you're all having a good 3-day weekend. At least for many of us, it was 3-day weekend. Um, and happy Memorial Day, or if you prefer a somber and um, serious Memorial Day. I know some families take great offense to the jolliness and which some other families have embraced this particular holiday, but I hope whatever your attitude is, that the holiday is to your liking. Okay, I want to start this PowerPoint from the beginning. I want to swap the presenting view there, and I want that to go away, and I want this to show up on your screen now, and there we have it. Okay, so today we're going to be covering um, outlining in particular, and this informative speech and its requirements. I know we did read literally the official description of the assignment um, last time. Um, I got a couple of questions because you had noted, you eagle-eyed students of mine, that there are some discrepancies between the assignment as I assigned it on the PowerPoint versus what's the description in the book. And specifically, that description was number of citations. I'm sorry, not number of citations. We're going to talk about that in a second. That's why I circled that. Note cards. It was 6 maximum note cards. Online, folks. You don't have to worry about snail mailing me your index cards. And in fact, as a whole, as a program, we're kind of moving away from index cards in some of the speeches. Or at least I am. I guess I shouldn't speak for every other instructor. But very few people use those anymore. And in fact, most professional speakers that are here practicing now, they will use a teleprompter. And this is partly why it's a decent reason to take a class like this online, is to get practice looking at a camera while also glancing at a screen, to see if you can kind of maintain that eye contact. And we'll talk more about that later when we talk about delivery techniques. And yes, I'm aware that it seems kind of weird to talk about delivery techniques after you give what is going to be 2 out of 4 speeches. But you know, these assignments build on each other. We want you to get the structure down before you start refining your how do I say it? Before you start refining your style. We need to build a foundation. And so that's why we're doing it this way. Hopefully in the last speech you learned about the technology so that you're more comfortable with it. This speech we're going to learn about the structure that particularly informative speeches follow, but every other kind of speech will follow this kind of outlining format as well. So again, it's kind of laying the foundation for things that are coming and the refinement that is to come. So that's why we're doing it this way. And I am happy that many of you ask questions about delivery, and many of you ask questions about, what is or is not a credible source and things. And we will get to those ideas, but we don't have to worry about them right now. We're at the foundation laying point, and that's where we're going to focus our energy. Um, but do ask questions if you have them, even if we're answer them later. And it shows that you're active and participating, and I really appreciate that because as an online course, I don't see you at all really, except when you submit a video. So those kinds of communiques let me know that you are thinking about the material and that the class is progressing. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out there that for the many of you actually that talked about the note card requirement that was in your workbook, don't worry about it. We're not going to use note cards. So there you go. Anyway, outlining for easy points. Outlines are probably one of the easiest things that we do in the course. Um, everything else is a speech. So the outlines are really kind of quick and um, easy for us to do. But for a moment, let's talk a little bit about an outline. And I know I talked about it a little bit last video. But an outline, again, is a structured notes or structured notes on what is to be said during your presentation. And what really goes in an outline is really depending on the purpose of the outline. The outlines vary from just one word per item to a sentence per item to the whole darn thing that you're going to say. So there's a lot of variance in there, and those terms, and they're used in your textbook. It just so happens that we're going to skip over the outline chapter in favor of reading chapter 9, which is the chapter about how to support your ideas. But we'll talk about that more in a second, or rather towards the end of the video. So those types that are in your textbook, or the types that I just kind of vaguely described up here, are called the keyword outline. That would be the 1 word or 2 word per line. The full sentence outline, which is a sentence per item on your outline. And that's the kind of outline, the bolded, underlined, italicized thing here, that's the kind of outline that we are going to use in this class. These other two we will not use, all right? Do not turn in an outline that looks like either of these. You want the full sentence outline. It's kind of like the one in the middle in terms of complexity, all right? And then, of course, the whole darn thing outline is called an outlined manuscript, all right? It's written out word for word what you want to say. The goal of an outline is to show visually, show the reader, I should say reader, how ideas are subordinated, or the ideas, what ideas are supporting what other ideas. I know that maybe doesn't sound very clear, but it shows you which ideas are the main ideas, which ideas are like the facts or examples, and inside those facts and examples, maybe there's a couple of really small details that you feel are important enough to include, but they're so far indented that they're things you want to remember to say, but they're not as important as a main idea. And that's kind of the idea of an outline, is to kind of show visually to yourself or anyone reading the outline, like your instructor, like me, which ideas are the most important versus the ideas that you want to cover that are maybe not as important, all right? And that's the purpose of an outline. It's kind of a visual representation of how those ideas are subordinated or how they descend in importance, all right? So a full sentence outline contains a complete sentence for each item. And again, this is the kind of outline that we're going to do in here, all right? So what exactly is an item? Well, it's one of those outline thingies. It's either a bullet point or a Roman numeral or an A or a B, etc. It's one of these green triangles. That's an item. And that's right, there's just a full sentence, just one sentence for each of those. And I want to emphasize the idea that it's a one sentence, okay? You're not writing out every single word. You are not, again, not writing out every single word you're going to say, all right? We'll learn more about delivery styles in a later video or later broadcast, but we are practicing something that is the best delivery style, or at least the most common delivery style in outside of college, is something we call the extemporaneous delivery style, all right? And the basic idea of that is that you are delivering ideas that you have thought about carefully in advance, but you have not prepared a manuscript. Okay, so you're prepared to talk, but you don't have a rehearsed, like you're giving a play type idea of what's going on. Okay, a speech is not a play. People will call it a performance, but a speech is ultimately a different kind of performance from a theatrical performance. All right. Now I know some people might differ in how they feel about that, but that's the reality of it. A real speech um, is not a theatrical performance. Um, and honestly, you can tell when someone is speaking in public and they're giving a theatrical type performance because it seems stiff and unnatural and like I said, we'll rant about that when we talk about delivery styles and their strengths and their weaknesses. um, but anyway, we're practicing a kind where you know what you want to say, but you haven't written it all out because you get to uh, speak from your own personal knowledge more than you speak from a huge document full of everything that you ever learned about the topic. All right. So what do our outlines need? And this is where we talk about everything that I would like to see in your outlines. And if you want to follow along, um, I will post this PowerPoint to Blackboard. So for many of you that are watching this in the archival format, um, you don't have to worry. You'll already see this, but if you're watching live, there's like 5 of you. That's awesome. Um, this will be posted like immediately after the video. Anyway, so if you want to follow along though, in a more conducive format, this follows exactly the skeletal outline for the informative speech format, which you can find in your respective workbook, whether you bought it for the fall 2017 or earlier or later. For me, it's on page 55. It's a green piece of paper. You can find it in the table of contents. So the skeletal outline for the informative speech. This PowerPoint goes right through every single item on that list there. So what do our outlines need? Well, at the very top and somewhere, you need to have a title. And yes, you should title your speeches. I've put this all in caps here just so you don't forget it. It's like I'm shouting at you. Title. Um, you do need to title your speech, your presentation. You'll notice too that even though I still kind of follow the bad PowerPoint model, even when I'm doing a broadcast, all of my presentations, quote unquote, are titled as well. They have that title card at the front. So you want to get in the habit of titling things because that way it gives people something to remember, give people something to, when they look at your document, they can associate you with the presentation. The general purpose is something you need to record. In this case, it's to inform. You could also use the word to clarify, to dispel myths about, to explain. Those would be appropriate verbs there. But that's also all you would write. So you really can just get away with putting a title, a general purpose of to inform, and that's it for that line. All right. Now I know that maybe some of you grammatical people out there would say, well, to inform is not really a sentence. Whatever. The sentence comes right after it, all right? In the specific purpose. Explain the difference between pink and blue fluids will help. Explaining the difference between pink and blue fluids will help you know the steps of how to de-ice your car after Snowmageddon 2011. So that was an example of a specific purpose. A specific purpose is explaining to the audience or declaring, rather, not necessarily explaining, what you really hope people will get out of your informative speech. And remember, it's very important that you not try to become persuasive here. In other words, that you try not to say things like explaining how it's best not to smoke. Right? That's actually an persuasive specific purpose. Um, Now you can't explain the many compounds in a cigarette. That would be an informative purpose. But a persuasive purpose aims to change people's behavior or thoughts. All right, you just want to give people new information. All right, that could be another general purpose. I want to give people information. All right, that's your purpose. You're not trying to change them. All right, that will come later in our persuasive presentation later in the semester. Okay, so that's like the front matter part, the declaring your intention and giving yourself a title part. Now here comes the actual part where it's going to look like a speech. You have an introduction, and an introduction contains 5 things. You do not have to use Roman numerals for this, okay? But it does need to have all 5 functions for your speech, okay? And your introduction has an attention-getting statement, all right? Um, Something that you think will get an audience to perk up and pay attention to to you. Um, Getting someone's attention is a lot more how do I say this? It's a lot more complex than just shouting something like, "Oh, there's a fire," and then everybody looks at you and says, "Yeah, there's a fire for grilling on Memorial Day," and then everybody quickly loses interest because the thing that you said does not quite match with the importance of what the topic is. So you want to make sure they line up, and that your attention-getting statement isn't just kind of a gag. Another thing to avoid is that don't ever use or open with the line, Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines movie as um, the things like that. The reason why they're used in media actually is kind of making fun of the speaker, because that's universally disliked as an attention-getting statement. All right, the joke is that only a bad speaker would do that. So a good attention-getting statement might be a startling statistic, or you might actually just flat out explain a story or an anecdote, or if you're going to talk about, let's say your informative speech topic is about movies, you might just describe a scene in a famous movie and say, scenes like, or lines like, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn," is one of the ways that cinema poses difficult content to our society. And today I'd like to explain how the various ways that cinema affects our cultural consciousness. Right? Um, that would be a decent attention-getting statement that actually also included a thesis statement. But the idea is that you don't have to do anything fancy. You don't want it to sound stiff. Like a startling statistic, like a startling fact, or an anecdote is a great way just to get started. Don't rely on the good old Merriam-Webster's dictionary to bail you out of this one. Um, all right. So after you get the audience's attention, you want to give them the thesis statement of your speech. And for example, um, the thesis statement I gave in that example that I had just now about the speech about how moments in cinema shape cultural consciousness is a thesis statement, right? You're declaring specifically what your speech wants to cover, and in fact, you can, with little alteration, maybe even no alteration, you can use your specific purpose that you declared at the top of your page to be your thesis statement that comes right after your attention-getting statement. All right. Remember, no one, well, I am, but no one else that sees your speech, your video, is going to see your other things. All right. None of this stuff. You can double dip all you want there. And again, your specific purpose statement is probably your thesis statement as well. All right. Like I said, with little alteration, you could just copy and paste it in here. Next, you want to follow up with a statement of importance. You want to explain why the topic is important for the audience to listen to. Um, why is it relevant to them? Um, and don't feel demotivated if you feel like you have a niche audience, because you actually probably don't. I had a student give a speech about uh, frisbee golf. And his statement of importance was basically saying that, people are looking for ways to exercise, but people always have that same kind of complaint that exercise is boring. Whereas, frisbee golf is fun, but also involves a lot of exercise that it's a level of activity where people are not really aware how much they're exercising, and it makes the exercise itself fun. He did a much more eloquent job of saying it, like of saying it. But he gave that statement of importance as like, frisbee golf might seem like a frivolous thing, but if you're one of those people that wants to get more exercise, but you don't want to feel like you're counting the calories that you're burning, then maybe frisbee golf is for you. All right, he said something like that, and that's a statement of importance. All right, that's a statement of why the audience should listen to your topic. Um, then you need to have a statement of credibility, and this is maybe new for people because a lot of so far this is like the pretty standard essay introduction that you probably had since grade school. All right, but this statement of credibility is a little bit different. This is where you explain to the audience or say to the audience why you are a credible or believable person to talk about this particular topic. All right. And it could be, and again, it's important to be truthful because after all, this is a statement building credibility, not where you want to say something demonstrably false and lose your credibility. Um, but you can say something as simple as, I have been studying this topic since I arrived in college 6 months ago. And that's fine. This is not an opportunity, or you shouldn't look at it as, wow, I've got to wow these people with my expertise on the subject. No, you just explain why people should believe what you're saying. And if your experience is that, hey, I researched this topic for 2 weeks during my summer course, then that's it. That's all you need because that is a credible statement. All right. Again, you're not trying to impress us all. You're just saying why, what your involvement in the topic is, why we should believe what you're about to say. And then the last part of your introduction is a preview, right? And that preview is just a list of all the main points you want to go through, all right? Main point. And you just list them out, all right? So, again, an introduction about cinema being important to our society. You might say, cinema is an important part of our culture. It's a so many billion-dollar industry or whatever. You should believe what I have to say about cinema because I am a theater major and I am a junior. He'll say I'm a junior theater major at Ball State University. Um, and there are 3 reasons why cinema is so influential. It's appeal to young people, its appeal to adults, and its um, the amount of financial investment big businesses have in movies. I don't know. I just kind of made that up, but that's that would be exactly how you say that preview. You just list out the main points. You don't need to explain or summarize them in any real detail, but you just kind of go over what the main point is. And again, this would be on your outline. This would be a full sentence for each one of these. All right, but it's just a list. And then finally, the very, very, very tippy last thing, the tippy, pointy part of your introduction that is pointing towards the body of your speech is a transition to main point 1. And that transition um, just starts with something like, so for my first main point, right? And yes, speaking is partly repetitive. I know you just listed out main point 1 literally seconds ago, but you still want to have that transition where you say, and now my first point is, and then you start on your first main point. All right. After you transition out of your introduction, you go into the body of your speech. And your body is nothing more than your main points fleshed out or has more detail to your main points. So in this one, we have a main point 1 topic sentence. All right. That's the one sentence that you just say, I forget what it was in my example already, but, cinema um, has a huge appeal to the youth, right? Adequate for the main point 1 topic sentence. Then underneath that, you would have a supporting factoid or example, all right, or a supporting fact or example. I think I use the word factoid to try to sound cool. um, right, and then you would say, maybe you found something in Time magazine that says, people under the age of 25 all watch movies all summer, all right, and you would have a source citation for that kind of information because it's not something that you would know as a person, nor is it something that the audience would know as a shared cultural understanding. So you have to cite the source. And remember that all our sources are going to be cited orally when you're talking. And in order to do that, you just need to go author, public. You just need to have the author, publication, and date published. So, for example, let's go through the whole pattern here. Um, Cinema is very influential on the youth. According to Fareed Zakaria, writing in Time magazine on October 25th, 2011, people under the age of 25 watch movies all summer. All right. That would be a complete main point one with the first supporting fact or example, right? That'd be how you'd go through that. Um, Again, sometimes source citations can appear after you have the actual information. It really kind of depends on what the information is. But you do, if you're going to use any information in your speech that did not come from a shared cultural understanding, for example, like the sky is blue, you don't have to cite that information, but you might have to cite how many people attended Obama's inauguration. You might need to cite how many people enjoy the hobby of Dungeons and Dragons. You might need to cite how much money people spend on movies. Right, those are the kinds of things that you would have to find a source on and cite that source orally. Um, and then for whatever, again, this is up to you, your best discretion. You can have multiple examples, multiple facts to support your main points. It's up to you how many. You need at least one, okay? You need at least one before you can move on to main point two. Um, but you might have 3 or 4 facts for your main point. I don't know. It depends on the situation. It depends on what your topic is, and I can kind of help you figure out what the appropriate level of detail is. Ultimately, the appropriate level of detail, by the way, and I've said this to a few of you that asked in an email or in a Skype call, that the appropriate level of detail is whatever will fit within 4 to 5 minutes. Right? It's not a very long time. Maybe it sounds like it's a long time, um, but it really isn't. You don't have a lot of time to go over. If you're giving a speech about frisbee golf, you can either talk about the rules of frisbee golf, or like the 3 most important rules of frisbee golf, or you can talk about frisbee golf's history. You don't really have time to do both, all right, in 4 to 5 minutes. It's just too much. So you've got to really narrow your topic down. I'm more worried that people will have a 20-minute presentation as opposed to a quick 4 to 5 minute um, presentation. Um, so again, main point, factor example, at least one. Only needs the author, publication, and date published for your sources. You don't need any other information. And again, if you can have more than one fact. It just depends. But um, in any case, when you're done supporting your main point and you're ready to move on to whatever the next part of your speech is, you need to provide something called an internal summary and preview, which is also known as a transition to main point two in this case, or really there's the transition to the next main point. So what the fudge is an internal summary and preview. It's a transition technique. Um, Colloquially, we say things, we would tell you to say something like the way we explain it is, an internal summary and preview is where you tell them what you just told them, and then you tell them what you're gonna tell them. And the reason why you do it that way, you're repeating yourself in a little bit, because once you say something, this public speaking is a different medium from video and from writing, because once you say something and it leaves your lips and goes into the air, it is gone. All right, people might hear it and they might listen to it, they might consider it for a few seconds, but it's probably going to be gone, deleted, gone, non-existent the moment it leaves your lips. So you have to repeat the important bits a few times to get people to kind of remember and for it to kind of sink in, if you want to use that terminology, into their consciousness. All right. And again, you don't repeat everything. That's what we call didactic, and it's not very entertaining, nor is it very effective. If you repeat something too much, people get tired of it, and then they definitely will forget it. They'll file it away on their recycle bin in their mind if it's too much, right? Just like a spam mail. But you do need a summary. You do need a preview in your introduction, and then after you're done with the main points, you say, "All right, I just told you about how cinema is consumed by the most by how cinema influences the youth. Now I'm going to tell you how cinema influences adults in my set. All right, and that's all you need to say. That's an internal summary and preview, right? That one sentence there is an internal summary and preview. I just told you blank. Now I'm going to tell you blank, right? Or now I'm going to cover blank, right? Um, So an example here, I just explained how to pour kitty litter behind your car when it's on ice. My next point deals with how to drive uphill after you get unstuck. All right, that's it. That's all you need for a good transition, for a good internal summary and preview. All right, and again, that happens after you're done giving all the supporting facts or examples. Okay. Now, after you go through all of that stuff, so you have as many transitions as you have main points, you go into the conclusion. And your conclusion really just starts with a summary. And again, like the preview and the introduction, you just list out your main points. Again, a sentence for each of these. You just kind of remind the audience what your main points are. Again, it is good to be repetitive. Um, and then you give a closing statement that gives us a sense of satisfaction. All right. So you conclude with a sentence that lets us feel like we are better off for having listened to your presentation, for having that experience. So in a speech about the importance of cinema, um, I might conclude with the idea that says, um, or I'll give a full conclusion by saying, so I went over how cinema influences the youth, how it influences adults, and how big companies are really invested in cinema and movie making these days. Now that we really have a full understanding of cinema and its various influences on society, I hope you have a more nuanced look at that big summer blockbuster that's coming soon. I think it's called Solo Star Wars Story, right? Or something like that. That would be a good closing statement, all right? Again, it's trying to give the audience a sense of satisfaction or a sense that, I'm better off for having listened to this stuff. All right, and that's the speech, um, and that's the pattern it should follow. Again, I'll post this PowerPoint on Blackboard for you to peruse on your own time. But again, it also follows the same format that is in your workbook, so you can find the same format there. And it really has everything on it. I think the only thing that's unique to this PowerPoint is actually the little explanation here about author, publication, and date published for your oral citations. Um, that appears later in Chapter 9. So let's talk about what's due next or coming down the pipeline for this week. There will be 2 assignments this week, or at least by week, I mean 7 calendar days. The first one, we'll talk about the second one after this one is done. um, so the first one is due on Thursday, May 31st by 11:59 p.m. I made it due a little bit. Usually I try to go video to video, so an assignment I give on Sunday, I would maybe have due on Wednesday, which is the next video time. Um, but I'm going to go ahead and give you an extra day because I felt there might be some confusion about what was due on Monday, and we'll talk about that just in a second. So I'm going to give you an extra day to kind of either ask questions or just have a little bit more time to think about it. What your submission will be for this assignment after you're done focusing on what's due on Monday, because some of you might just get clarified all then and start work in a more productive direction after this video. Anyway, I want you to go to the assignment link under course content and upload a Word document. All right, it can be .doc or docx or any kind of text file that can be read in Microsoft Word, like I want to read it, that contains a complete full sentence outline for your informative speech. So basically, what to do on Thursday this week, or this coming Thursday, is all of this stuff, right? One sentence for each of these things, all right? That is what is due on Thursday. And I'm putting this line in here so I can remember to post the assignment link on camera. So you know what? Let's go do that. Wabong. Here we are at our thing here. So go to course content, um, assessment, assignment, informative speech, outline. All right, it is going to be worth. No, I don't want to do then. I want to do on the 31st, don't I? Yep, there it is. At the end of the day, and it is worth 50 points. And I want to submit that puppy. Okay, and there it is. So you can see where it's on the course content section of Blackboard, the informative speech outline. It's sitting there underneath this PowerPoint. Now, questions about the assignment from the last video. I think some of you might have missed, and I didn't explain it very well, to be honest with you. The informative speech topic, again, by Monday, May 28th, so that's tomorrow at midnight. Create a thread in this forum. All right, I want you to turn in this assignment in the forum. Well, that includes what your informative speech topic is. So you want to inform your audience about whatever. List also the main body points you have and any maybe examples or details you've brainstormed. So here's a example submission here. Topic specific purpose. I want to inform my audience about the life cycle of narwhals. Main point 1, narwhals start their lives as robots made in a factory on the moon. And then my supporting fact is that every year Santa and his elves bring the baby narwhal robots to a lonesome pair of narwhal parents on Christmas. And then main point 2, whatever. So you get the idea. So that is due. This is what is due on Monday. It is not the full outline. Okay, full outlines due Thursday. All I'm really asking you for here is a quick sentence about what you want to do for your topic and a quick brainstormy list of the things that you want to cover. Okay, I don't need an introduction or a conclusion. I just want you to post what your thoughts are on this topic so far. Okay. This will prepare you for doing your full outline. Another thing I've been saying a lot lately is also, a lot of people when they start working on a speech or even an essay, or it doesn't really matter what academic assignment it is, if they have to express their thoughts, they often start at the beginning, which they feel is the introduction. But that would not be correct, or that would be a great way to get disorganized rather quickly. Remember, introductions, let's bring up my PowerPoint again. Introductions may contain, well, this is a good introduction, contains this preview. If you don't know what your main points are yet, if you haven't kind of figured out what you really want to talk about and what facts you want to find or facts you want to pull out to support those ideas, then you can't preview your topic. So either A, you'll forget the preview part of this, or more likely you will have a preview and end up not achieving it at all. Because by the time you get to actually writing the body of your speech with your main points, maybe a piece of information that you wanted to find proves to be difficult to find and you axe that part of your speech. Or maybe your thoughts about the topic are change as you write or change as you think about it. And it turns out that again, maybe you add something that's not on here or you subtract something that you thought was on here when so I guess what I'm trying to say is the reason why I'm having you brainstorm your main points first is because I want to avoid the compulsion to start with an introduction. All right, you do not start preparing for the speech with an introduction. You start by figuring out the main point, the body of your speech. You start with this stuff right here. Once you get this all figured out, then you can go back and write out all of these other things, the 5 things for the intro and the 2 things for the conclusion. All right. Okay. That's really the material and the questions that I think people had asked. Let's see, I got my notes here. Yeah, make sure everyone knows the assignments under discussion board. Did that. Skeletal outline. Yep, okay. Yeah, I believe that's it for now. On Wednesday at 6 p.m., again, that's going to be our regularly scheduled broadcast time. we will go over the rubric for the speech. And of course, before you submit your outline, and really before you record your speech, you should uh, check to make sure that everything on the rubric is reflected somewhere in the outline. And if it's not, you'll have an opportunity, have about a good 24-hour period to make sure it gets into the outline and or your recorded speech. Um, I know I've contacted or been contacted by a few of you who really struggle with uploading your other speech. Um, so we'll hopefully over the next week we'll get that all sorted out for those individuals. Yeah, so that's all I had to say. It looks like I've lost all 5 viewers, so it doesn't seem like anyone's going to be in chat. So I'll go ahead and end the video here. I want to thank you again for your attention, and again, thank you so much for asking questions and doing all of that. It's great to talk to you on Skype or on FaceTime, or it's good to hear from you all. I really, again, if you have a question or if you feel like you're confused, you need to contact me and we'll get you squared away. Um, one thing I will say, and to conclude, maybe a profound thought to conclude the video, is that confusion is a symptom of learning. If you were not trying to connect information that you've just received to information that you already know, you would not be confused. All right, and connecting that information together is the learning step that will help you grow as a person. So again, confusion is a symptom of learning. I would be very concerned if you are not at least somewhat confused about the course and how to do well in it. Again, confusion, asking questions, those show investment, and especially when we don't get to see each other face to face, knowing that you're concerned and have that investment in the course is going to be really important, so that I know that you are, well, basically that you're there at the other end of the at the other end of the monitor. So again, thank you so much for your attention. Ask me if you have any questions. I will see you all on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. Have a great Memorial Day tomorrow.